All right, gentlemen, welcome to the episode 3 of Something Objectively Stupid.
Is that my
Yeah,
cup?
Yes,
baby.
yes.
No,
Is
no,
that
no,
your
no.
Yeah,
cup?
Is
Is
that
that
is
a
that
cup?
is
no,
that my cup?
this is my cup. I remember this is you got this cup with me. Do you not remember that?
No, that's my cup.
This ain't your
That's his cup.
cup. Your cup is the
Okay.
has got
I'm missing my Stein. That's my cup.
No, it's not. I have a Stein too.
Known liar and thief, Emmett Wilmsey.
We said
That's my
that was
cup.
It's true.
you. We said that you were the known liar and thief. This is my cup. I've had this for 2.5 years now. This is my damn cup.
Nah, nah.
Nah, you were
But
you were
I've
a
been.
token thief.
You did not have that from when I started my job plumbing,
Yes, I
which
did.
is a great transition.
Ah, let me railroad this really quickly.
Holy crap. Guys, we're washed up on episode 3. I don't think we have it anymore.
I
All
think
right,
we've
let's
been
continue
washed
the
up since
bit. Let's
episode
cut the
1.
pod.
Cut
We're
the
ending
pod.
it.
Cancel it here. Oh boy. So, what is this episode about again? Who wrote the script?
I
This
did.
episode-
I wrote the
You
script.
did. This guy did.
I did.
Ladies and gentlemen, today is the work episode. We're talking about work ethic. We're talking about digging up some soil. We're talking about cleaning up after other people. We're talking
about them
Wow.
damn avocado toast,
the damn
non-working,
avocado
the millennial. No,
toast. The millennial.
this generation
I wanna
doesn't have a work ethic.
I actually want to talk about that. Everybody says this generation doesn't want to work. But have either of you like experienced trying to find a job today that'll take anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Like at
It
all?
is ridiculous in this area. Like it's terrible.
I think
Trying to like
yeah, unless you're going to the trades, unless if you go into like
Mhm.
a blue collar job, it's impossible. But that's because we live in rural southern Ontario. All we have is blue collar jobs.
True. And it's difficult too, because if you don't get a head start on life, like you don't start working at 14 years old, 15 years old, if you don't start working by then, you're not going to have a resume built up by the time you need to get into the working world.
Mhm.
Like I just went through the job hunt with my girlfriend, and that is a nightmare. It's like working at a shitty spot. Oh shit, I need a new job. Apply to places, apply to places, apply to places, and it's months of it. Like
Mhm.
actual months of everyday applying. And I don't think people or like the general public who have jobs and have a steady source of income realize how difficult it actually is to start out again. It's very hard.
it is very difficult. I was searching around for a little bit for jobs. Now that I have experience, I'm plumb. Now that I have experience, I've finished my first term of school, and a lot of places are seeming to like want to hire me. But that's almost 2.5 years, 3 years of a job experience. So for me to like back when I was starting out, like in high school, when I was looking for co-ops, there was 2 places that would take me on out of the 20 that I applied to. And I could drive too at 17, which a biggest thing for co-op students is that no one will take you because you can't drive. It's just a hassle. You only have a half day. I had full days because of COVID, and I could drive myself. So it was a huge advantage I had, and only 2 places would still accept me, even when I had a co-op before. I did 2 co-ops. I did one for a company that no longer exists, and I did another co-op for the company I'm working for right now. And for me to get the second co-op, only 2 places would take me when I had a couple months of experience in the field and I could drive. It's impossible. And that's in the trades as well. So to get any other type of job, I would imagine it is ridiculous.
Honestly, it
It
comes
is.
down to a lot of like being like beneficial. Like let's all be real. We were born in a community that it's easier for us to find jobs. Like let's be real. So many people who don't look like us, who aren't the same gender as us, it's very difficult to find a job, and it's almost impossible. For me, when I went into film work, a lot of it comes down to nepotism. It's like who you know, do your family work in this position? It's very easy to find a job when other people have built repertoire for you. And I think that is a big part of the job hunt, right? So people
It is.
immigrating to Canada, people who aren't white men, it's actually difficult to get normal jobs. And I think it's very easy for people to say, oh, you can't find a job while they're working. But they forget
Mhm.
like the push-ups that they had. They forget the
Mhm.
the leg up they had on everyone else. Like even for me, my first job really was like employed job. My first ever employed job was I went and worked at a gas station for like a month. I was 13,
Mhm.
and the only reason I went there was because my older brother worked there, and someone went away on vacation for a month, and they needed extra help. And I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
why not? But that's the only reason is I went there because my older brother worked there, and that was something
It's
that
who
got
you
put on my
know.
resume.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, like my first
Well,
job was landscaping, and for me, the only reason why I got that job is because my older brother, as well as you, Emmett, worked there, and he worked there for several years, and I was 14 when I started working there. I injured myself, so I worked for like a month there. Came back off the injury, and I got basically fired immediately after. It wasn't a firing, but he had several talks with me saying like, this work is for some people and it's just not worth it for other people. And he kept repeating that on the last week of summer, and then after that, he's like, "Hey, Aiden, are you gonna be working with me through the fall?" And I'm like, as you said, it's for some people and not for the some others.
That's messed up. That's like a shadow
that
fire. That's
is.
ridiculous.
Yeah. It was like the reverse of quiet quitting, quiet firing.
Yeah.
Like he was never going to fire me, but I just needed to prove myself over and over again. Like he sent me off to work for someone else while working for him. I swept up some guy's shop when I was working for him. I was a terrible worker, but it was hardscaping is what people call it, like moving rocks, not like cutting grass, but like or planting flowers, which you two have experience in. But it was like moving rocks and that kind of stuff.
You made it sound so easy. Planting flowers? I'll kill you.
Yeah. You know,
I'll kill you.
I'm gonna go further in on that, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you what it was really like. So I'm gonna go through my job experiences that I've had. My job experiences have gone thus follows. First one, working for my neighbor, and I'm working at a flower shop. I was 15 at the time. I was running a market. Awesome first job. You learn social skills like crazy by just going at a market. You're trying to sell flowers. It's the simplest thing. You flirt with old ladies. It's part of the job. And it was great. It was a great first job. You make 10 bucks an hour. If you make tips, you keep the tips. Your family shows up. Great job.
Were you
My
giving
job
tips to old ladies?
I'm not going to comment on that. But my next job after that was actually Domino's. So Domino's was that thing went crazy. I didn't know how to make the pizzas properly because they kept saying, "Bring the sheet home, study this sheet," and I went, "No,
Fuck
you're
no,
not paying
baby. Fuck
me.
no, baby.
I'm
Fuck no,
not doing
baby.
all that. You're not paying me for that. Therefore, I don't have to learn it." And I was just shit at it, so I just answered phones all the time. Once again, social job, great stuff.
Mm.
After that, I went back to my neighbor's place, and this is when I worked 3 jobs at a time. I worked for my neighbor down the street, my neighbor across the road from me, and Domino's. All three while doing high school, which was grand. I absolutely loved doing that because I am a little wage slave and I love working. So, packing flowers, working for greenhouses and everything like that. Crazy stuff. But Domino's placed across the street packing flowers, which was a big difference, and putting them into buckets. And then a greenhouse, especially during the summer, was lovely. Mr. Taking care of flowers over here
Kill you.
doesn't know what it takes to rip up an entire plantation and lay down new bedding for it. 3 different layers. Also, rip things out meticulously and plant things back in meticulously. Do a walkthrough every single day. Bunch flowers, cut the stems, make them look pretty. It's an actual job in a greenhouse, and it's hot, but it's fun. It was enjoyable. Whoa! You've been hit with the curse! The
Aiden,
curse of
that was
darkness!
crazy.
Well, post that, I worked for a farm. I'm not allowed to disclose what farm I worked for, but it was an experience for sure. It was something different. Full on like actual labor, full-time shifts. Growing into a young adult working full time, I actually quit college and then went back to that job and then saved up enough money for a car. And then now I'm in a blue collar work. That's just it. It's where the pieces eventually fall at 20 years old.
Eventually, everyone goes to blue collar work. But
It's
Joy, those
true.
first couple jobs, you said you were working for your neighbors. Was it just like, did you ever apply, or was it more like your mom was like, "Hey, this guy needs a fucking job. He's a bum."
He actually approached me instead because I waited for the bus stop out every day, and I was just in high school. And then he knew my mom a little bit because we had a couple community get-togethers or what have you for the street. And so he's like, "Hey, Joey, want a job this summer?" And I went, "Yes, I want money." And so, yeah,
The
that's what it
Joey
turned
Pom
into. It's
Pom.
who you know. It's who you know.
Yes, in almost any industry, it's who you know. But yeah, for my very first job, it was timekeeping for the local arena. That one was just because no one wanted to do it because it was terrible work. That one was just it was so boring that uh for one Christmas, Santa Claus got me a comic. I didn't ask for it, but it was to keep me entertained because I wasn't allowed to have my phone on me because that would keep me distracted. So Santa Claus thought a book would be better. Yeah, so timekeeping is just there's a clock in hockey for periods, so you press stop, start, all that stuff. You put the score up, you put the penalties up. So you're just doing that, and you make less than a minimum wage, but you're not really on the books, so it's okay.
It's in cash. It's like $10 cash an hour. Like I would talk to a timekeeper
Ugh.
today. She did 3 games and she got $38. So that's three
That
hours,
sounds like,
Ooh.
but
$38.
you know what? That's for what you're doing. It's not
Exactly.
minimum
And
wage.
it's cash, right? It's cash.
It's
It's
cash.
good.
It's not
It's
minimum wage, but it's good work for young people. You wouldn't want to do it in your 20s. Like if
no,
one of us had a
it's
timekeeper, we're probably being forced into it.
I agree.
It's not sustainable in any form.
I think timekeeping though
Mhm.
is a great first job. Like the hockey arenas are always looking for extra help. Sports arenas
Mm.
and hockey arenas are a great place to just send your kids because they are public areas where the older people who have to work there have to go and get a police check every 2 years to make sure that they're
Mm.
not touching kids. I have one of those. Believe it or not, I have a police check that says I don't touch kids. But
Awesome.
so it's I think
There's
it's a
also like
it's
a whole bunch of trusted adults there too, like all the
exactly
coaches and
it's
everything like that.
if your kid is 12 or 13 or 14 and they're looking for a weekend job, I think that's a great place to start looking. I think
Mm.
I started there as well. Great
Mm.
great place.
That's the thing too. Like we all started looking for our own jobs. We never really got forced into finding a job.
I
I would
no
think.
oh no I was
You got
forced a
forced?
lot. Yes, forced hard. My family was very adamant. My mother and father were very adamant. Like I live on a farm, still live on a farm. And when I was a kid, my neighbors and my older brother decided to get chickens together, and they did that for a year. And my older brother maybe did that for 2 months, and then my neighbor did it the rest of the year. And he just called me one day. He's like, "Hey, I can't do it every day." He's like, if you show up like 2 times a week, you can keep the eggs. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, if you feed them for me 2, 3 times a week, whatever eggs you collect that day, they're yours. So I did that for a year, and then next year he didn't want to do chickens, and my mom and dad are
Is
like,
that
this was the
is that
batches.
deal still on the table? Is this deal still on the table? Because that would be great for egg prices right now.
No, no, the deal is not on the table. But when I was 12 when I bought my own chickens, and my I didn't actually buy them. My parents bought them, but we did it like a loan system. And how that loan worked is I would collect the eggs and I'd feed the chickens, and my sister would take them to market. And she would only give me back about like half the money that I made from those eggs, and my sister got to keep the others because she sold it. And that was technically paying off the loan, which again, it taught me a lot. It was a big kick in the nuts because I did all this work with these chickens. Like
Welcome to taxes.
that's basically what they did. But my parents were very, very helpful. We had a 4-wheeler. I'd zip down there, like every day. In the wintertime, my parents would drive me. Like it was super nice. It got to the point with these chickens that like I was 12 and 13. I went to school in London at the time, and I started loading them up in these crates, and I have like at the end of the week I'd have like 100, 200 eggs that I'm not gonna eat. And it's the wintertime, so the market, like the Saturday market's closed. So my mom and dad are like, why don't you just start bringing them to school? So I start getting these like Lululemon bags, and I'm just funneling eggs in there. And there's like I think every week that I brought eggs, my poor mother and father's like trucks back seats just got covered in eggshells that snapped. But the teachers in London loved them. Like I'd do like $5. It was $2.50 for a dozen, $5 for 30. So that's a steal. And
That's a steal of a
it
deal.
taught me a lot. Like it was a I highly recommend, even if you live in town, spend $200, get yourself a nice chicken coop, put 3 chickens in there from a very young age. Get your kids to do it every day. Even if you get 2 or 3 eggs and you eat them that day, you don't have to sell them. It's a great, like, I learned, it just made me do something every day. And it was good for me at like 12 and 13. Very good.
Anything to
can't-
give yeah, anything to give a kid a work ethic, right? Like
Yes.
keep them and like the bare minimum of responsibility too. Like that goes back to timekeeping. It is the bare like the responsibility you have with keeping chickens is keeping the chicken alive, feeding it, and collecting eggs,
Keep it
which is
clean.
what
Don't
like
forget the cleaning. I
yes,
hated
the
cleaning.
cleaning.
I hated cleaning, but that's again,
So
it's
for
not much.
yeah, the majority
No, you
of
can't.
that's great for entrepreneurship. But what was that, Trey?
You can't. You're like what Emmett said. Even if you're in town, you should get chicken. You can't. They
Really?
won't allow it.
No.
They
Yeah,
won't
no,
allow it. Yeah.
you're not zoned for agriculture. They will outright come to your house and say, "You gotta kill these. You're
Even
not
if it's like
allowed
two
them
little
here."
chicken. What if they're pets? They're my pets. They're
They
my pet
can't be
No.
chickens.
pets.
Really?
Mm-mm.
They cannot be pets. They're
Well,
counted as livestock.
let me have a
Really?
horse in my backyard of my apartment.
I mean, you could try.
Problem with
Like,
chickens
that's my
as well.
vehicle. That's my car. I ride my horse. I love
Problem
my
with
horsey. My horsey love me. I
My
ride that
horsey
shit to
love
work.
me. But the chickens, there's also the possibility of virus going around. Say somebody has an actual business like set up 2 blocks from you, your chickens could technically infect them. And Strathroy, the evil villain town, will not let you keep chickens.
That's
They're like,
ridiculous.
we don't want you to. You're zoned for agriculture.
It's
Fuck you. You're not allowed
That's
chickens.
wild.
it is a little ridiculous, but you also gotta think it might not be like the best beginner job for kids, because like you said, your parents had to fund you the money. I feel like, but starting your own business, like cleaning driveways in the winter or something like that, right? Cutting grass.
Oh,
Landscaping.
I
Landscaping
yeah.
type
as
of,
well.
yeah,
I
cutting
forgot.
grass.
Oh my god, that was a job I did. I made like car magnets. It was my business. It was called Everything Emmett. I sold eggs. I cut grass. I mowed lawns. No, mowed lawn and cutting grass is the same thing. I did like flower beds. I raked leaves, and I sold vegetables. So back at where my parents have the windmills, there's just like that like 2 acres of land where there's just is barren. So I went back there, my family and I went back there with rakes and we just started planting seeds, and that was my job every day. 2 chickens in the summer and go get rid of all the weeds in the garden. I did that every day. It was awesome. Everything
Oh,
Emmett,
yeah.
I might have the car magnet still sitting downstairs. I might grab it. I'll
That's
show it later.
awesome.
We
You
need
That goes
that.
crazy.
We need
I'll pull
that.
it up at the end. I'll pull it up at the end.
That is crazy. But yeah, so one of my more earlier jobs for the family, that I kind of just got handed to me was working in the farm. I'm a pig farmer, so I just go to the barn and help out whenever I could. And again, it's just teaching you like the bare minimum responsibility. That was the very first job I ever did. Wasn't paid for it, obviously, but the very beginning, and then helping around in the barn taught you a bunch of stuff, just like having to show up every day. You know, there's no nuts, no buts, no coconuts. You gotta be there, right? So it just teaches like sometimes you gotta do something. And for being in my current job now for the last couple years, I've seen some applications come through, and I've seen some test outs for the employees where they come and work for us for a little bit, for like a half day, just to see if they're worth their weight in salt. And I can tell if someone had responsibility put them on them at a young age or not. And that's gonna be tough in the future when you get there, if you're a kid, because you you might not have that work ethic, and really you gotta think whose fault is that? Is it yours or is it your parents? You don't want to blame your parents for something when you're 18, because you just gotta pull yourself up at that point. But we had these opportunities to, at a very young age, get in that kind of work experience. A lot of parents and a lot of kids don't have that opportunity. They can't just be like, yeah, go work. Like some people need their kids at home, right? Some people. So it's hard to say, where if a labor crisis, if because I will say there are some people that don't want to work. So it's hard to say where they come from, right? Is it from not having enough opportunities as a kid, or is it from them as an adult still just not caring? You know?
No, I
I think
totally
I
agree.
think it's like a little mix. I think it's like a little mix. It's a trade-off in childhood. It's like if you were sheltered for this little bit and you didn't have to work, right? And you were not expected to work, nobody pushed for it or anything like that up until 18, you're chilling in like oh, I lagged. But you're chilling in like Grand Bend or something like that. You don't got nothing going on. You're 18 years old. You don't have a job or no drive to get it. And that's just how you were raised. That sucks. Like you have to
Mm,
pull your bootstraps up now and you have to get to work and you have to get this stuff done, even while feeling like you don't have to or don't want to or what have you. But then again, there's the trade off of here goes a bit of your childhood because maybe your parents are forcing you into something that you really don't fucking like, but it's going to boost your work ethic in the future. And this situation sucked more than the situation that you're going to be in. So your work ethic is already way up here when they expect it to be way down there. So
mhm,
it's a trade off. It's
I
a
think
trade off
that's a
in
really good
what
point.
you've been
Like
dealt.
there's times where I
mhm.
go to the bar and I still go to the bar and I hate it. And then I sit down and I do my editing job now. And it's great. I'm on top of the world. But like the more I do my editing job and the less I do my barn, the more
Mhm.
I kind of don't like them equally. I think yeah, it's definitely a trade-off of your situation is this bad now, but you can get here. I definitely agree with that.
Mm. Yeah, because
Yes.
there was a point in my life where my work ethic was completely shit. Uh, I I had a job before, 14, 15, and at the age of like 16, I told my parents I don't want to get a job. I don't want to work outside of the farm. It's a big hassle, and I just don't want to deal with it. That was me basically giving up on my work ethic. But they said, all right, if you're not working out, you gotta work for us. And they put me in the barn, and they did pay me. Uh, Again, cash, not a whole lot, but like they still pay me for doing work. And I will always be grateful for them for doing that because I was like, I don't want to work at all. And they were like, no, you got to have a work ethic. And even then, I still wasn't working as hard as I was then. But when I turned 17 and I was able to drive and I got my first real job, because, like I was actually on books this time, I was incredibly grateful for that period of time because I showed up and like, I want to work. I love doing this stuff. I love being out of the house.
Anything to get out of the barn,
I
please.
think that's a big part of farming. It's totally to be a farmer, you really have to like it. Like it's not like oh I like this and I don't like that. Like you have to like it all, and that's just not something.
Mm,
That's not it wasn't for me. So that's why I went to get other jobs. I had
yeah.
the same
True.
situation as Aiden did. It's you either work here or like I will. I would again. I was very fortunate with my parents. When I said I want to get a job, they drove me to drop off resumes. And if my parents didn't, my grandmother did it. Like they drove me to work every day. Like sometimes I was 5 minutes late. But again, like I'm 14 or 15, and my parents are driving me. Like you bosses can't really get mad at you about that. Like I remember when we worked at the greenhouse, Joey. I think I was like seven. I was 5 minutes late almost every day.
You you were religiously pretty late. Also, we didn't talk about that. You worked with me.
Yes,
You
yes, we
worked with
did. We
me
worked
for like
together.
an entire summer.
That was a really good summer. So during COVID, I during COVID sucked. You were in high school. We were in second and third year of high school. We couldn't do much, but we were fortunate enough that Joey's boss from down the street was hiring at the time. And my parents, pushing me to get a job, and I'm like sitting there like, it's COVID. What am I supposed to do? Joey lets me know about this guy down the street. I drop off my resume. He sees that I worked on a farm, and he's like, "Okay, perfect. This is my guy." He gave me a tour, and he basically told me that I was hired that day. It was beautiful, but the job
Yep.
was Joey. The job was like a greenhouse. You walk
It,
in
it was it was a
in the
greenhouse.
winter time. Fantastic. Like my first few ships were like March and April. It's like spring, like really really laid back. The flowers aren't growing too much. You show up at 7 and you work till 3. Like it was great, great shift.
Yeah, it
Six
was
days a
easy.
week.
It was
It
easy
was
stuff.
beautiful, just beautiful. But then summer hit, and then things got a
And
little yeah, things
and
got difficult.
another thing that happened too is you joined at the perfect time. So March, April-ish, right? Nice weather, not too frigid cold, not too smoldering hot, and they just replanted everything so
Yes.
you didn't have to do any physical labor.
No, it was just the
But
training period.
yeah, no, it was. But once it got further into it and they hired on a couple more employees that they only have for seasonal summertime-ish times, it picks up. The heat picks up, the work picks up, and just everything goes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It was consistently 35 degrees Celsius in there. Like that's what the greenhouse was set to.
But mm,
Yeah.
That was also wasn't that summer really bad that year?
It was
Didn't it
also
get to like
famously hot, yeah.
It was,
didn't it
yeah,
get to
it was
like the
really hot.
40s outside? So 35's in the greenhouse, then you step outside, it's like, oh, it's hotter.
Yeah, it was a very very hot summer, and again, it's not too bad. Like most of it is you just hold like 600 flowers in your one hand, so it gets really tired, and then you for the next 3 or 4 hours you're just in a hot room plucking flowers and like organizing them. But then there was the tough days where we would finish organizing the flowers by like noon, and our boss would be like, "Hey, I'm gonna cut down a tree in my backyard. Do you guys want to pick up all the wood in the 40-degree weather?" It's like I'm gonna sit inside
Uh,
and I'm gonna have a nice drink of coffee. I'll keep an eye on you guys, but someone needs to pick up all this wood. And Joey and I, yes
yeah.
sir, yes sir.
That's how you know you're working for like a small company when they make you do shit around their house.
Yeah, but he was
Like one of
great.
It's true.
He was
oh
great.
no, like he was great. Everything you tell me about him was mostly good, and like for a kid, like because we were 17, 16, for still being that being like yeah that's great, is an accomplishment because a lot of people hate their first jobs. Like we were pretty lucky that we avoided the retail experience for our first jobs,
Yo, for
except
first job,
for our
yeah.
first
Yeah, I
jobs
was gonna say, huh?
because because it's just yeah my first job was as a septic tank technician. So basically
Bro's been plumbing
what that
since day
is
one.
since day one. I like playing with Legos and I'm autistic. That's basically what plumbing
He
is.
loves
If you
poo.
like both
You
those things,
love
go
poo.
into plumbing.
You love
Well, no,
poo.
because they just the pipe just connect together. It's awesome, dude.
No, I think you're
Love
just a
But
big fan
Lego,
of
eh?
poo.
Lego.
Love
Lego!
Lego,
Joey brought
eh?
out the Legos!
Yo, look at that.
Yeah.
Yo, that
They
thing.
should,
Beautiful.
Oh, open it
That's
up.
dude,
Open
so
this
up the hatch.
thing,
nice.
Damn.
Wow.
shit
Yo, is
goes
that Stormtrooper
crazy.
caked up?
Yeah, wow.
$400 crazy.
Four
Jeez.
hundred. You spent $400
That's
on
what
that?
Lego is now.
No, my girlfriend spent $400 on it.
But that is what Lego is now. It's ridiculous. Inflation, guys.
Hey,
Lego's a novelty.
hey,
It's not
but
toy
they're
anymore.
completely recyclable,
Yeah.
right? They recycle like they're 100% clean.
Yes.
So great on Lego because a lot of companies, Nestle, are still using very mean
Nestle? I thought it
methods.
was Nestle.
Nestle, sorry, yeah, Nestle is still
That
using
doesn't
very
exist
mean
anymore.
methods.
Nestle still
Yeah,
exists.
No, they do.
Nestle still
They do
exists,
exist.
yeah, they're
They
using
do.
very mean methods to make their
98% of their
chocolate.
chocolate, yeah, 98% of their chocolate income is slavery. Yes, keep it up, guys.
What?
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Beast is on. I saw that.
you didn't know that?
Yeah, Mr. Beast is on that grind.
No.
Yeah, so like child's like it's wage slavery is what it is. Like basically you get paid for like a week's worth of work, and their kids
That's
doing it.
messed up. Mr. Beast goes to a slave camp and he pays them more money. That's a great video idea. He should do it.
He does. That's called Feastables.
No, Feastables is now on the. He's on the child slave grind as well. Sadly.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Miss Feastables was like on the decline, and he wanted to bring it up. So he had a meeting with his investors, and he goes, "Hey, you either get in the slave, like into the like what Nestle does, or you Feastables is gonna drop." And so he
But
said,
like,
he basically said like his hands were tied because all of his
oh
money
my.
is invested basically in Feastables.
The reason why he started that up though was to
Mhm.
prove like you don't need slave labor,
No,
and he
right?
failed. That's
Looks like he
awful.
failed at that. Yeah, that's fucked up.
Oh, whatever.
We
What?
love Mr.
Anyway,
Breast.
but
Speaking of
anyway,
slave labor, oh, this goes back to our employer down the street. It's a give and take relationship. We work in 40-degree weather in consistently 35 degrees Celsius greenhouses. And then on every Wednesday, we take an hour lunch whenever we
Yeah.
feel like it for
And
pizza.
he
We'd
never
order
a
pizza.
couple times he said no, and Joey would just call him and be like, "Jamar, we have to. Like, we're exhausted." And he'd be like, "Okay, I understand. Like, you guys are right." Jamar, yes, it was horticulture work, so it's technically listed as like a form of agriculture. So we did not get paid minimum wage. We got paid below. But again,
Mhm.
you're only working from 7 till 3, and it's 6 days a week. Actually, it ended up being 5 because Jamar said, "Hey, you guys are working really good. I'm gonna give each of you 1 day off." And they're like, "Yes." He was a great boss.
Me and you pretty religiously. Oh wait, no, we rotated shifts. I didn't see you every day. I remember not seeing you a few days of the
Yeah,
week.
I saw you 4 days out of my 5. I saw
Yeah.
you 4 days out of my 5, and some days I worked like Joey's like, oh, actually, I have a dentist appointment. I can't make it. I'll be like, okay, I'll pick up Joey's off shift and he can have mine. It
Yep.
was a great rotation.
Mm.
Gemma,
It was.
genius. I hope he's doing well, actually.
Yeah. Again,
He
that just
is.
taught you like a lot of responsibility as like your first job,
And
because
it
like
was.
you had to
Oh yeah.
schedule shifts, you had to like plan stuff accordingly. It taught you like, hey, stand up to your boss. Like you need your lunch break,
No, I.
even if it
Yeah.
was outside of what was normally expected to be given to you. Like 30-minute lunch break is what's expected, but even then, like, hey, yeah, no. So that taught you a lot of good
And
things there.
that was my first job that my parents like did not have any hand in until I got the job. Obviously, I didn't have my license. I was grade 10, grade 11. Yeah, it was in between
Hmm.
that summer. So
Hmm.
I couldn't drive, so my parents had to drive me. But other than that, I got this job through Joey. It was great. I have a really funny story. So one day, I stayed till 5 one day because Jamar asked me to, and we were cleaning. Like we were doing
Hmm.
a full deep clean of everything. He just looked at me and said, "You doing anything tonight?" I'm like, "No, Jamar. I'm a 14-year-old, 15-year-old in the middle of summer. No." So we start cleaning, and he's got all these wires on the floor to like deal with temperature and stuff. And I was sweeping away, and I saw them in my eye, and I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna sweep those up. Like I'm gonna leave them. And I start sweeping. It's like half an hour, and I just zone out. I hit the flow state so hard that I grab these cords with the broom and I just sweep them and I rip them straight out of the wall.
Oh.
Just whoosh. And Jamar comes, he looks at me and just goes, "For fuck's sakes!" Like his face went beet red. And I'm sitting there and I'm stunned because he's such a nice guy. I've never heard him do any of this. Like earlier in the day, we were
Yeah.
talking about Shadow of the Colossus, and he's like, I'm gonna lend you my PS2. It's gonna be great. I was like, wow. And then he's like, "For fuck's sakes!" And he starts like doing circles, and in my mind, I'm like, well, it was nice while it lasted. I had a good run. And like the greenhouse fans have all turned off. The
Oh.
room is beeping, like beep beep. Warning lights are on
Oh.
everywhere. I'm like. So he does a phone call and he goes outside, he does a phone call and he comes back in. He goes, "I got the guy coming. It's going to be okay. He'll be here in an hour." I'm like, "What guy?" He's like, "He's going to fix it." And I'm like, "Jamar, I'm so sorry." And he looked at me. He's like, "You know what? I saw you sweeping and I thought, he's not going to hit those. He wouldn't. He's not that dumb." And then he looked at me when he said that and he's like, "I didn't mean it like that." And then he told me a story that before he told me about a story. Like, again, this is a testament to how good of a boss he was. Because he yelled at me, but it was like, I calmed down. He's like, "I'm sorry." He told me a story of when he worked for a gas company. He'd be the guy driving the gas trucks to deliver gas to gas stations. And he drove off with the pump still attached 2 times
Oh.
and cost them like thousands of dollars in repairs. And he's like, he said, if I got fired every time I did that, he said I would be nowhere. So he said, "I'm not going to do the same to you." And I'm like, "Oh, Jamar. Oh, Jamar, you're so good. Give me that 13.50 an hour."
When,
Yes.
yeah. When do I get
You
the
know,
PS2? When
Give
do I
me the
get the
PS2. I never
PS2?
got that PS2, but again, it's because my dad said don't take it from
No.
him. He's like, that he's your boss. He's not your friend. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
Dad.
How much did that repair cost you? Know?
I have no idea. He'll never say. I don't. If I asked him now, I think he would tell me. But it was a very I was shaking in my boots. Like it was a terrifying experience. Like as a kid, I was a devious kid. I got yelled at by a ton of people in my life. Like, "Hey, don't run there." Like my
You
parents
were a
gave
devious kid.
permission to anybody, any public figure, to just spank me and Wyatt in public if we were misbehaving. And it happened. Was I ever spanked hard? No. It was not hard enough to make me cry, but like having some random person that you don't know pick you up and say, like, "Listen up here, kid." That's what it felt like. My professional relationship with my boss, who's been nothing but kind, just yells at me. It's a terrifying experience. It was, but
Mm.
it smartened me up to, next time I work, you have to, when working for someone else, you really have to treat it like it's not your own. Like this isn't just a
Mhm.
job. This is someone else's livelihood, right? Like you're working
Mhm.
for them. Act like it. You know what I mean?
That's why working for like a small business is such a great first job, because it really teaches you that sense of self. Like my first big boy job where I drove myself to it, the septic tank technician. Uh, it was just me and another guy, the boss. His name was JT. He was awesome. They didn't have any kids or anything like that, so just talking to the guy was a blast because he just didn't take life seriously at all. and and like I really connected with this guy, and just going to our first couple jobs, his main goal was to make money to keep me working, and his second goal was just to teach me life lessons. and it was great. Like every single time, he would just teach me like if I did something wrong at work, he'd be like, yeah, this is how you do it better here for next time, and this is how you should think about it for wherever you go. He's the one who instilled in me, do the hard stuff of your work first, and then do the easy parts. Because I used to always be like, if I'm doing a job, I would make a list of like, this is what has to be done. I'm gonna do like, if I'm writing an essay, I'd be like, let's write the title first. Let's get a fancy little title going. But now I'm like, let's get the meat and bones of this essay done, and then I can write the title after I figure everything else out. He's the one who instilled that in me, and I'm very appreciative for that. Another skill he also taught me was how to smell, how to tell if someone's on drugs by smelling their poop.
All right,
Okay.
describe the smell. So what does crack smell like? That's a
I
double
feel like
entendre,
I don't.
by the way. That's
Yeah,
a double entendre.
it is a double entendre. I don't want to disclose that information on the pod. People could use that for evil. But
I think you're just a little nervous that next time I go to your house, I'm gonna be like, oh, that's crack.
this guy's on
on
speed.
that.
He definitely had some crack before this one.
But
I know that smell
since
anywhere.
But yeah, you could tell if someone was vegan. You could tell if someone was on a high protein diet. You could tell if someone was on meth, crack, anything like that. Not that I would have smelt those smells, of course. No, I was never near any drugs. Um, in Minecraft, of course.
Do you have? I think we talked about this like in personal, but like, do you still have that skill? Like, do you think if you practiced, you'd get better at it?
I have dropped it because I went from dealing with other people's shit every single day to dealing with new builds. Because as a septic tank technician, you're going to where the poop is going into the fields, right? So it's not like a sewer at all. It's like it gets spread out into your lawn because there's no sewer around. So I would be the guy when it eventually gets plugged up because poop solidifies and like clogs. So I'd be the guy that would dig up the tank and unclog it. I haven't had to do that in 4, 5 years.
What if it's
Thank
like riding a
God.
bicycle? Like you just have to do it for an hour and then you get it all
I
back.
think maybe I can definitely tell when because as a plumber I still have service calls, and I can definitely tell for like the high protein or the vegan diet because that's there's something lacking severely. But that is one of the weirdest skills that I do possess. But for the
We should put
drugs,
this
I
to the
cannot figure
test.
that one out yet.
We should
Put
put
it
this
to
to
the
the
test.
test. Emmett, I take speed. You become vegan. Aiden, you do heroin, and we're gonna do one of those things where they hide it behind a box.
In a box.
Hey, we blindfold
And
Aiden.
you've gotta
What's this
smell
one?
them.
What's this
What's this
one?
one? What's this one?
Yeah. But yeah, you can also tell if someone's on chemo too, because it just wrecks everything in your system. To tell someone's history, you smell their poop, and you can figure out their whole life. You know,
Damn.
like
You know that
you know, like-
motherfucker had a dead wife at
Bro,
13.
Yeah, I was
You already
exactly.
know.
A big. You take a big whiff. Third divorce. I see. Like what did it say?
don't get a medium, don't get a psychic. Get Aiden Kennis to smell your shit, and I can tell you what your past
This
was.
is like the closest thing to a palm reading. Like, oh, looks like you're gonna be you're gonna have a handsome wife or a handsome husband in the future.
A
Oh,
handsome
wow.
wife. Let's go. Fat boy.
Yeah.
I can see
That's fucking
kids
awesome.
6 kids in the future in a nice boat.
The way I got taught the skill though is we open up a lid and I'm like, oh. And the guy I'm working with just like, you don't want to know why you did that? I'm like, because it's shit. And he's like, no, it's because this person is on chemo. And
Take
I'm
a
like,
second whiff,
oh.
he says, take a second whiff.
Take
He
a
does.
second look.
Let it burn into your mind. And he taught me that skill because he wanted me to know if I should be friendly or not to the host.
That is the weirdest way to see like how nice you have to be to someone is, oh, this guy's a crack addict. Okay, maybe we stay
Your
with it.
shit smells
let me-
bad.
let me,
You're getting
yeah.
treated
Let me make sure-
differently.
Let me make sure my tools are nearby, you
So,
know?
Aiden, I took a fat shit in your house when I left this morning. What drugs am I on?
You know what he's on? Do you know what he's on? Is it like wine tasting? You gotta whip it around. You gotta give it a little sniff.
Oh my
Speaking of drugs, I do have a funny secondhand story of drug. Well, not secondhand. This is more like
You got
safety
secondhand drugs?
awareness.
Does
I
it
have
smell
secondhand drugs. Oh god,
These
terrible.
drugs gave
No,
me
but
a
this-
second hand. Oh my god.
I would love that. I would take the drug that gives me the second
You
hand.
have
That'd
a
go
second
crazy.
hand.
You have a
You
second
have
hand.
to.
Bro wants the lizard drug from
It's
Spider-Man.
missing! His hand is missing!
Joey, take the drug.
That's back.
Back, that's great.
Anyway, But speaking more on like drug awareness, when I was in school, because I'm still an apprentice for what I do, I'm a utility sector type of guy. But when I was in class, I had this awesome instructor named Mike, and he told me because he worked downtown London, which Aiden, if you've ever been down there and there's been shit there, you would know what's in the shit. It's a lot of drugs. And so their job for just the beginning of the morning, like they'd have the full construction area taped off and everything. Their beginning of their day was an hour of picking up needles on their job site. Like an hour of picking them up. And so they're picking it up. You have the anti-puncture gloves. One guy has the anti-puncture gloves and he goes and he reaches into the which is one spot that they were working. It was like just a spot where he could put his hand there. Uh-oh. Pulls his hand out. There's a needle right on the end of it, just poking through his
Oh.
glove. And he goes, I don't know if I was poked or not. And they're like, give it a little bit. Within 15 minutes, this guy's overdosing. Like within
Oh,
15
was he
minutes,
actually
it was like,
overdosing?
yeah, like full on, like you're gonna start convulsing in a second. He's tweaking hard type of deal. Like get the ambulance here, stat, like now.
I
And
wouldn't even say
so,
like if I don't know if I got stabbed or not, I'm calling the ambulance immediately. I'm not giving it a second. I'm getting the fuck
yeah.
out of there.
Well, it was like just give it a minute, and then within 15 minutes, this guy's like swaying side by side, and so the instructor's like, guys, you really gotta look out for this shit, especially with working around in this area, because one, you don't know what's in the needles, and two, you don't want to find out what's in the needle. So
Mhm.
just be careful.
What happened to that guy? Is he addicted to heroin now?
Yeah, he's a hardcore addict. Aiden knows. He's
I
done a
can
couple
smell it.
plumbing jobs on his
You
house.
can smell
No, no, the
it.
guy's completely fine. He lived and he's all fine and dandy after that. I don't think he suffered any negative health consequences besides really tweaking out that day and then being off of work for a week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'd take the time off work after that. That's what I would do.
it's a
I've worked
fucking
at
scary
some.
experience.
Yeah, I worked at a homeless shelter for a little bit. The first day, on my job that I work now, the first day I was working, I went with the service guy to fix a toilet there, and so he's bringing me in, and he told me like, yeah, this is a homeless shelter kind of thing, and he just left it at that. I'm like, okay, I don't really know what that means, but okay, like I know there's homeless people here, but I don't know why he's telling me this to be like prepared. So we go upstairs. We're looking at the toilet. A lady comes in. And is like, "Oh, you guys fixing this?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're trying to fix it." She's like, "Oh, okay," and then leaves. Not like a good. Not doesn't start a conversation. Is just scratching herself as she walks away. And then my journeyman says to me like, "I'm gonna go grab something from the truck." He says, "I'll be right back." I'm like, "Okay, sounds good." And I'm kind of like freaking out because I'm like, I can see out the window, but I don't see the truck. And like 10 minutes go by. I'm up here at the toilet waiting, and it's like it's a 1 minute down to the van, 1 minute back up. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, what's going on? You know, first day on the job, I don't know any procedures. So I go back down to the van after like 10 minutes of waiting, and he's on the phone. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And he just puts the call on mute, looks at me and says, what the fuck are you doing down here? I'm like, oh, sorry, you're just taking a bit, so I don't really know what you want. He's like, go back up to my tools right now. And he sent me he like was sent me back up there. And when I got back up there, someone was like at the door looking at them, and I'm like,
Ooh,
I was gone for less than a minute.
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I was back. I was like, oh, excuse me, and they like looked back and then just immediately started walking away. It's just sad what you see in those types of spots, you know?
I love downtown
Yes.
London. I love downtown London. I love downtown London.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's just weird, but that's a little bit of a sad story. But let's try to lighten it up a
Let's try
little
to
bit, I
lighten it.
guess.
Yeah. Let's swing it
Uh,
around.
what's something funny that's happened for you, Emmett, as you're like you work for yourself right now, you're in the film industry. What's it like one of your funnier experiences that you've had?
Working for yourself, nothing is funny. This is the worst. I would never wish this on my worst enemy. There's a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money with being self-employed, just not in southern rural Ontario. If you're getting into film, if you want to make like the big bucks, go somewhere else. Toronto's
Real.
big. You might be able to get by in London. There's a few film companies in London. A lot of good film and art can come out of Canada. It's just the region that we so happen to be in. it's not. Like, um, I think that people don't understand the value of it. Like, I have someone who tried to offer me $100 for an afternoon of my time because like, oh, your work is easy. I'm like, yeah, because it's easy to me because I went to school for it, but it's not easy for you, and that's why you're asking for my help. Like, this is gonna take me
Yep.
5 hours, and you expecting $100? That's like, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know.
Hmm.
And it
Yeah.
was, again, $100 for 5 hours doesn't seem. It seems like that's more than 10. That's $20 an hour, right? But in the
But you're not just
film,
paying for your time. You're
yeah,
paying for that's $3 above minimum wage right now for you having to go to school for 2 years, two and a
yeah.
half years, and then also have your own business.
My own
You need
equipment,
more than
mind you, this
that.
is my own business, my own equipment, my own time, my own software, right? Like, if anything, I should be aiming for 30, but I
Yes.
you can't. People don't understand the value of it. um that is why I'm going back to school.
Are
I
you
got
really?
accepted. I accepted
Nice.
my so I'm going back to be a firefighter. I'm gonna stick with film stuff. I love
Hey.
film. I can't stress this enough. I think what set my stuff up for loving film is when I was working with the greenhouse with Joey. There was a film company that came and wanted to make a movie at one of my farms, like one of my farm properties. And, being a kid, I was like, I've always been interested in cameras. I've always recorded myself. I've made endless movies. Like, I've got hard drives and DVDs and VHS tapes of movies I've made, from like Lego stop motion to anything. So I was like, oh, a movie's there? I'm going to go do it. Bad news. I can't work for JMR anymore. Also, bad news. It's a horror movie, so it's all shot at night. So while I was in high school, I would leave high school and I'd go straight to filming, and I'd work from like 4 to like 2 in the morning. And then I'd get picked up, go to bed, and go to school. That was a long 2 months. But it made me realize that,
Oh, you were dead those 2 months. I remember seeing you. You're napping in class, and you told me a stat. It's like, yeah. So I looked up online. A human body can go like 3 months on 4 hours of sleep without like major repercussions. So I'm fine.
yeah.
Is what you said to me.
Well, my parents pushed me into this. Like, here's the thing. I did that film thing like 5 days a week, and I still made it. Like, some days, like, I still made it to the hockey practice. Like, I still made it to one hockey practice a week. Like, but my dad pushed me. He's like, Emmett, stop seeing your girlfriend. Stop going to school. Stop doing hockey. He's like, you're here 24/7. And I could have, but I convinced him that, like, like, I gotta, I can't drop school. I can't drop hockey. I can't stop. I at least gotta have a life outside of this. And I think
I like how
that
you didn't mention I can't, or I can't drop girlfriend. You
Yeah,
didn't
can't
even
drop a
mention
girlfriend.
that one. And that's
I love
I
my
could have dropped
girlfriend
that
very
one.
much, but me and her have a relationship. She'd be very pissed if I disappeared off the face of the earth for those 2 or 3 months. But I don't think it would ruin anything. Like, I think it would just be a very big lump. Again, I didn't do that because that is the wrong choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, my parents very, very strongly pushed me into this, and it worked. It was really well. Like, I enjoyed my time there. It made me want to. I went to school right after that. I applied to Fanshawe a year later to go to film, and it was a great time. Um, I hate school. Fanshawe Film School, awful. But the people I met there, a lot of people were really nice. A lot of people were great. Some of them were evil. I hate pretentious art students. I hate pretentious art students. You're not a director. You're 19 years old. Get out of my
Exactly.
face. Leave me alone. But yeah, film was great. But yeah, I'm going back. I'm going to be a firefighter. I just need
Nice.
something that has a set value to give me some stability in my life. Because, like, over the
Yeah, because if
summer,
you go up to the bank today and be like, "Hey, I want a loan," they're just gonna laugh at
yeah,
you.
they'll just laugh at me. Like, over the summer, I made bank. It was crazy. I made a ton of money. And then the first little drop of snow fell. Um, and now I am short 3 grand from the company that I work for currently, that I'm on contract with. And there's nothing I can do about it. They've tied a little dollar bill on a fishing line, and like, oh, we got salary. Like, oh, we might want you here. Like, you can get a salary a year. You get like 60K a year. Put you on a fishing line. And I keep jumping for it. And every time I get really close, they yank it further away. It's ridiculous. They've got me. They've really got me. And I think if you're starting, look at me. Okay. If you're starting your own business, if you're going to anything entrepreneurship, do you know your worth, bro? Know your worth. Don't get fishing lined. Don't let them get you on the fishing line. It's ridiculous. Anyways, yeah, going back to school. I'll be in Sarnia in September. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna go to school with the same time as my older brother, so I might see him there for a little bit. That'll be a fun time.
Gross.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah,
Terrible.
gross.
Yeah, I think
Terrible.
I have the money to go for it. I can afford it myself, so it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a good time. Um, yeah,
Nice.
I think I worked construction as a kid. So I worked construction for 2 years. I say 2 years, but really it was 1 year and 2 months because I got my leg demolished. Really unfortunate accident. I broke my tibia, which is like one of the smallest bones in your foot. And I didn't. I was 18, and it was my first big boy construction job, like 50 hours a week. So I'm working hard out in the hot summer, and I get this giant clump of dirt that falls on me. And I didn't want to be the kid who goes home like crying because he's got a sprained ankle. So I start limping around for the entire afternoon. This happened to me like right before lunch. I didn't go home till 4 o'clock, and I'm walking, and everyone's like telling me to stop. They're like, "No, you can't." I'm like, "No, it's just a sprain. It's just a sprain." And the boss finally comes over, and he's like, "You're going home." We're like, "We're sending you home. We're gonna drop you off at your dad's, and you're going to the hospital." I finally get to the hospital. Worst day to be a broken leg at the hospital. 7. This is the craziest hospital story. 7 people came in with broken or fractured ankles. All of them left with just a sprain. They're like, "Oh, it's just a sprain. You'll take an ice pack." And of course, I was the last to arrive. So they're taking all these people with like sprained ankles, and they finally get to me, and they're like, "How bad is it?" And I'm like, "Well, I've been walking on it." They're like, "Do you really want to stay?" My dad's like, "Boss says he needs an X-ray." So I'm like, they're like, "Okay, we'll get you an X-ray, but it's gonna be a bit like we have other people here, and we just did a ton of ankles. Like we're done." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
It got to the point. So with broken bones, Aiden, I'm sure you know. Joey, have you broken a bone?
No.
Okay, so
I've broken like 5 in my
yeah,
life.
when you first
Yeah,
break
you
it,
keep breaking those.
yeah, you break them all. We should get into that. I
Why do
think
you do
should
that?
That should
Why
be
do you
I'm
do
honestly,
that?
I'm surprised I haven't broken
It's been
one
a while.
recently.
Hammer.
So
What the fuck?
I'm knocking on wood. Anyways, yeah. So if you've ever broken a bone, when you initially break it, the first hour is awful. The second hour, not so bad. But as the day goes on, it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it starts swelling, and you think you can tank it, and you can for a little bit, but it just gets worse. The
It
initial
also
hour,
depends on how bad the break
yeah,
is. Fractures, you can walk that stuff off a little bit.
yeah,
I've had a break before, and there's no, "Oh, after an hour, it's fine." No,
it's
you
it's
are
real pain.
ill.
Yeah, I've never had a break. I've had a fracture, and yeah, the first hour was hell. And then the second hour, you like, "Oh, I can tank it. This is manageable. Like I ain't no baby. I ain't no baby. Fuck no baby." And then yeah, it got to the point where I was in a wheelchair because the swelling just got so bad. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. Like I didn't even want to move it. And they got me in front of the X-ray. They're like, "Okay, we need to reset the X-ray machine. It's been a long time. Like we've done so many X-rays, we need to reset." After like 4 hours of being there, they finally scanned my leg, and they jumped for joy. They're like, "Yes, we got one. This isn't another false report." Like the smallest bone in my foot that if I walked on it any longer, they said it would have turned to dust, and they'd have to do surgery. But they're like, "Yeah, it was real close to just falling apart." I'll put a picture up. The tibia is a wild bone. So yeah, they put me in the leg cast. I was in there. I was out for the rest of the summer. 8 weeks. 8 weeks on this foot. Normal break is 6 to 8 weeks. Mine was maximum 8 or minimum 8 weeks, which is crazy.
Yeah, because I remember I went over to your house for your birthday, and you have a weird tradition where someone's face always has to hit a cake, and you got your brother really good.
No, he got me first. And then
Yeah, he got you first.
I grabbed cake. I put it in my hand, and I clenched it. I clenched a fist. There was no cake that hit that man's face that wasn't on my knuckles here. I swung as hard as he could. He's twice the size of me, so my swings on him don't do too much. But I was so pissed because
As you're in a cast, he starts running away, and you don't grab your crutches. You have the cake in the hand, so you are running after him on a broken foot to cake the man.
My doctor, he kept asking me. He's like, "Why is your leg not healing?" And it was like one of the movie skits where I have so many bits of me like falling downstairs or like just walking on it when I definitely shouldn't be. And I just said, I'm like, I don't know. I must be slow at healing. That's all I said. I don't know. And then I came back, Dr. Raj. I changed my phone to. We're not gonna go there. We're cutting this out. Anyways, Aiden, you've broken a lot of bones. I know this isn't really like work related, but I was telling my dad a funny story about when you showed up for the French exam in grade 9 with your like gashed open knee. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, so going back to the landscaping job, how I said I was out with an injury. It's actually because I crashed a four-wheeler and I sliced my knee open really bad. I go back to my house after because I went back on the four-wheeler because I looked down. I was wearing pants at the time. I didn't see anything, so I drive back to my house on the four-wheeler. I go to the bathroom and I look. I'm like, oh, that's a giant cut. But yeah, so I walk over to my brother, who's sitting on the couch, pull my underwear up, of course. I'm like, hey, do I need to go to the hospital? He stands up, then falls back down, and is like, yes, you need to go to the hospital. That was
Down.
because he almost passed out.
Oh, he's okay. That was
It was that bad.
big of a gash. He's like,
I was about points. I was like a millimeter away from cutting a main artery, and the nearest hospital is 15 minutes away. I would have been dead.
I love Strathroy.
Not terrible.
I love Strathroy.
So
I've
it
been
took me 42 stitches, and I got the knee got infected. So it was around springtime. So exams are coming up in high school, and I walk into school after not being there for like 2 days with an IV bag. I walk up to the main office, and I'm like, "Hey, I was in an accident. Can I be excused from exams, please?" And they're like, "Oh yes, of course. You don't need to do
Was-
exams. Look at you."
Was the IV bag actually in your arm? I don't remember.
I had the needle attached, and there was you could tell that an IV was in it. They didn't want to have to reinsert it, so they just put some like the foam stuff that goes over like an
Yeah.
orange in the supermarket. They put that over top of it.
Okay.
So I'm walking in with a port for an IV bag, and they're just like, "Yes, you don't need to do the exam. You're fine." As my knee is swelling up to the size of China.
It was gross. It was gross.
It was awful. And then I go to French class after because I'm like, well, I'm at school, and I see Emmett for the first time. He just looks at me like, "What the fuck is going on?"
You told us. You're like, yeah, I went to the hospital. I gashed my knee open. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm glad you're okay. It is so much. Like, it was so much worse than you can imagine. And you have a big scar from it now. That doesn't do
Yeah.
it justice. That does
They
not
need
do
they,
it justice.
they made me wait 4 hours in the waiting room. I will never forgive them
I
for
love
that
the
because I got to the
Ontario
back and they're like,
healthcare
they should have been rushed. The doctor said you should have been rushed in. I don't know what the fuck was going on. I
The
could have died.
problem- I think the problem is every time I've gone to the waiting room, I try and act like I'm not that sick, or I'm not that much in pain, because there's other people who are like actually in pain, and I'm willing to bet you probably did the same thing. Like you walked in, you're like, yeah, I've got this really bad gash. It's like a 6 out of 10. It's not that bad.
Yeah. Well, the adrenaline was pumping. It's
Yeah.
one hell of a drug. But I wrapped up my knee before I went. 'Cause, like, if it starts bleeding, I don't want to make a mess. So I wrapped. So when I said like, yeah, I gashed my knee open, and she sees the wrap I have on it, which is like athletic tape for when you sprain your ankle. She's like, probably not. But I'm like on the counter, woozy. I'm like, the adrenaline's finally wearing off. I'm like swaying back and forth. I'm like, yeah, this is what's wrong. This is what's wrong. My brother's with me. My mom and siblings are at a wake at the moment, so I can't get a hold of them.
Crazy.
But yeah. So, Joe, you never broken a bone though? Like no, like major injuries, or anything like
Yeah,
that?
what's your most major
No.
injury?
Uh,
Major bagel.
I've never had my major injury, and it won't pick it up on a camera because it'll just smooth my skin out. But I have a little gash underneath my eye, and I have a theory that that's why I can't control that side of my eyebrows as I could the other.
Take
But
off the hat. Take off the hat. Show me some
I'm not
eyebrow
taking
movement.
off the hat. But like this eyebrow
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
peek
yeah.
in.
Oh.
See, it's different.
Cool. Okay.
But what ended up happening to me is I suck piss at fucking skating. Like I'm terrible at it. That's just how I am. So
Guys, I think
I'm skating one day. We're at like a community skate and everything like that. So we're just chilling there. I'm going faster around the corners. I'm picking up some speed. I'm like, this is great. Nobody's told me how to stop, but I'm doing pretty great for myself. I go up ahead. I skate past my mom and everything like that. I hit a rough patch of ice, and I just whip my head into the fucking ice, just terribly. no hands or anything. My mom said, "I watched you do that. Like I watched you do that. You hit that rough patch of ice, went like, ooh, little wobble, and you put your arms at your side and just fucking face planted into the ice." But what ended up happening was I sliced just above my eye, like my eyelid here, and just
Mhm.
underneath my eyebrow, I like gashed that part open. And I was
Oh.
bleeding all over the rink. My mom has no idea what's going on, and I'm just sitting there with my one eye closed going, "Nah, I'm okay."
I'm big
And
enough.
I'm bleeding everywhere. My mom's panicking. My stepdad goes, "We're just gonna bring him to the hospital. It'll be okay." And my mom's like, "He's dying. He's dying. It's over. I've lost a son." And so we get to the hospital and everything like that. And he's like, "Good job of where you hit it. If you hit it any lower, you'd have an eye patch." And I went, It'd be kind of cool if I did. But I guess I can see out of this eye, so it's not that bad. So I fucking get in there and they're like, "Oh, we might have to give you stitches." And I'm like, "Well, I've never had stitches before. I don't want these." And so they're like, or we could glue it." I want to glue it. And so they glued that motherfucker back and they're like, "Just be careful with it." And I went, "Okay." And then it healed up. And that
It's
was it. That was my most major injury.
how old were you? I got a question about that.
Mm, I'd say, shit. I was definitely high school.
Oh,
I
high
think it was
school.
definitely
That was in high
around,
school?
maybe
What?
just before, maybe like grade 8,
Okay, okay.
You
like
didn't know how to
probably grade
Okay,
8.
so I
I
gotta.
still don't. I still don't.
No,
I'm not
remember we
great at
took
it.
him skating like last year?
Yeah, you just stood there. You just chilled on the ice on your regular shoes.
Um,
But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
crazy.
love doing that.
it's weird. When I was 10, I got my skin like cut open. I've got a giant scar underneath my chin. And it was like I remember the feeling. It's probably 10 times worse on Aiden's knee, but just flappy, unopened skin. It
Ugh.
was a
It's
gross
awful.
feeling. It is a gross feeling, and I was crying everywhere. I was away with my parents. I was away from my parents. I was with my grandmother at a campsite. Gashed my chin open on a piece of plastic. Yeah, so I went to the hospital there. They got me there, and everyone's telling me you need stitches. Doctor comes out with this cool band-aid looking thing, and he just said, "Your lucky day, kid. New invention came out this year. The doohickey." I'm like, what? They're called steri strips. So it's like the glue, but it's a mix between the glue and the stitches, and it's basically just a band-aid that they put on, and it just don't come off. The
Mhm.
adhesive works for like 2 months, and it just closes that shit back up. Like you can shower with it on. It was great.
Mhm.
I'm so surprised they didn't steri strip you up.
Yeah, that's weird. I also have like a eyebrow injury as well. If you guys notice,
I see
I
that.
got like a
Yeah, I
little
see that.
notch right there.
No, it's
So
stylistic.
yeah, it's stylistic. No, but the thing is, three. I have five siblings. Or four siblings, sorry. Three of them have this notch on their eyebrow as well. The only person who doesn't have it is my twin sister,
The evil one.
the evil one. But and I was like, oh, it just must be genetic or something. I'm looking at my parents and they don't have it, so I'm like, huh, it's weird. Like they all have it, so I'm like, where did we all get this from? So it turns out, as I got told recently, um, in kindergarten, there was this table, the smiley table, the U-shaped table. We were all the same height around that age, and we all ran face first into it at one point. The only person who didn't was my sister, because we were in the same class. So the teacher learned, let's put up a barrier or something. But you would think, oh, there's another one of them. Let's put something up to make sure they don't hit the table. 4 out of the 5 of us have this spot in our
It's
eyebrow
the Kenneth
because
coming
we
of
all
age.
hit the
The
table.
Kenneth mark of age, the mark of independence, the age of 4. You must run into the
Dude,
table in the kindergarten class.
the
Yeah, I
teachers
think
hate to see the Kennises coming back. They went, "Fuck, they had another." Oh, I gotta bust out the
No, it
table
wasn't another.
again.
Aiden's a twin. It was 2. Damn, they had 2. So they
It
got
was
a
a double
second. They
whammy.
got a second smiley table, and they lined them up side by side and said they both. If only one of them hits, it's not happening. It's gotta be both.
It's like
Yeah.
Groundhog Day. If a Kennis hits a table, we get an early spring.
Yeah, I think we've all jinxed it though. I
Uh,
haven't had a major injury in a long time. Aiden's
mhm.
honestly due. Like Joey,
And for
you're
us
pretty
being
safe.
like snowboarding and all that, I'm very surprised it hasn't
I don't
happened.
wear a helmet because I don't
No,
fall.
he
Yeah.
doesn't fall.
Jesse's on the trying to convince me because I told him we were talking about snowboarding. I told him I'm hitting the parks and I'm going crazy and I'm doing flips. and he believes me. But he's
Yes!
he's like, you're doing that all with that. Like he thinks I'm really dumb now, and
Yeah.
I think I'm starting to believe it. So I probably should pick up a helmet.
You should figure out what. But I think we should be wrapping it up here.
Yeah, I agree.
Honestly.
This is a
Yeah.
fun episode.
Yeah.
Good episode.
I had a lot of fun as well. But I think like getting those jobs, going back to the beginning, like getting those jobs early on really did give us like a huge sense of work ethic. And even with that though, it's still almost impossible to find jobs early on. Like our resumes are listed with good sources. We talked about like the variety of jobs that we've had, and for us it's still like a bit difficult to get a job. So if you like don't have that, it's next to impossible.
Yeah,
That's
no, I
fair.
totally agree. Like I've been doing film since I was 16. I'm the only one when I went to school that was 18 who had film set experience, and I still couldn't get an internship. I couldn't because again, it's who you know, it's not what you know. But that's just the state of the world right now, I think.
Yeah.
Good luck to all
Closing
fellow
statement.
job hunters.
Exactly. Closing statement for me. Ladies and gentlemen, you want a golden ticket for getting a job? Tell them your last job didn't allow to have your phone on the premises. That's the golden ticket. That's it.
What do you mean?
What?
That's it. I've been accepted to every job that I've
Oh, I
applied to.
see what
One.
you mean. I see what you
One.
mean.
If you tell them that your previous employer did not allow your phone on the premises and you are not allowed your phone, they want you. They want you bad.
They want
That's
me.
a crazy strategy. That makes so much sense.
Oh, it does.
That's all from me,
Yeah.
gentlemen. Have a
Yeah,
good night.
Yeah. Like and comment. Let us know what your first job was and if you've broken any major bones. Thanks for listening.
Bye.